Our world is constantly changing and has been facing the threat of climate change for decades now. Climate change is something that appears to be inevitable, and a large part of it is our fault. So first off, what is climate change? Climate change is any long-term change of temperature, precipitation, humidity, air pressure, or wind. A lot of people commonly confuse this with global warming. While global warming is a key contributor to climate change, the two are very different. It was in the early 1900s when scientists first discovered that Earth's climate had long-term fluctuations. Since then, scientists have worked to better understand the Earth's atmosphere and the problems that climate change could introduce. Now let's talk about what we've done. At this point, it has become very clear to many that human activity directly causes climate change. However, only 48% of adult Americans believe that human activity causes climate change. One of the biggest contributors to climate change and global warming is industry. Industry causes for emissions of many greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Carbon dioxide is a big one since it is linked with manufacturing and deforestation. Every year, 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide are emitted into the atmosphere just from human activities alone, and these emissions will only continue to increase with economic growth all throughout the world. Some notable locations of this would be the US, China, and India. All these locations are massive and are experiencing major growth in manufacturing and construction. Increasing populations will also aid in the increase of global warming. More people means more clothes to be made, more living space to be cleared, more products to be made, and of course, more mouths to feed. And that leads me to my next point. All plants undergo a process in which they convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. This of course is called photosynthesis. What you might not know is that the carbon that is absorbed in the plants is stored inside the soil. This is called carbon sequestration. That means that a lot of carbon is stored inside trees in the soil in which they reside. So when deforestation occurs, it causes massive amounts of carbon emission into the atmosphere. Deforestation is often necessary for economic purposes like construction, expansion, manufacturing, and even agriculture. Since forests are one of the most abundant natural carbon sinks, it can be really devastating when forest sizes begin to decrease. Do you ever think about how we get a lot of our meat? Another very popular meat, beef, comes from cows that are constantly grazing on land up to the point that grass isn't rich anymore, or just stops growing in general. This makes for new areas needing to be cleared for cows to graze on. The go-to source of land for a long time has been forest land. Companies will buy a large sum of land and completely clear the area for the purpose of cattle grazing. This is another way that deforestation influences climate change. And of course, cows have to undergo natural processes too. The cow's gaseous and fecal waste matter contains high amounts of methane gas. Methane is another high-impact greenhouse gas. A single cow can emit up to 100 kilograms of methane gas each year. There are currently about a billion cows on Earth. That adds up to about 100 billion kilograms of methane every year. Global warming will cause global temperatures to increase dramatically throughout the future. High global temperatures will cause glaciers and ice caps to begin melting. Large amounts of water entering the ocean will cause sea levels to rise more rapidly. The ocean will start to overtake the Earth's land masses. Someday in the far future, it's possible that there will be a thing called climate change refugees. There's no simple answer to climate change. Despite extensive research and efforts made by scientists worldwide, we still haven't found an answer. However, there are a few things that could possibly slow down or delay the effects of climate change. One thing that can have an effect would be restoring destroyed forests. Deforestation causes for large sums of greenhouse gas emission, so attempting to restore some of these destroyed areas can be very effective in slowing down emissions. This would be the cheapest form of carbon sequestration, especially considering that it is a natural process, just with some human assistance. Another possible way of fighting climate change would be to eat less meat. On a macro scale, this one is much more far-fetched, especially considering that almost everyone eats meat. Beef is so popular that so many cows are increasingly being raised and eaten. This causes for sometimes more deforestation and, of course, increased carbon and methane gas emission. These solutions are flawed, however, because they are difficult to act on, mainly for economic purposes. Corporations and other organizations need their funding and support, which becomes hard for them to gain, making the task of fighting climate change even tougher.